Hello, everyone, and welcome to a to be titled podcast. We're still in the midst of our transformation phase, but we were the artists formerly known as the Council, and we are very happy to have you here for a very special episode. We are going to be talking all things Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. We are going to be starting off with our non-spoiler thoughts, then transitioning into spoiler thoughts. I'm joined by our wonderful Council panel, Constance.
Hello, everybody.
Sohail,
All right.
and Natalia.
Hello, everyone.
What do you guys think of the Talokan?
I I loved it. There was just something about it when I saw him. I was like, this is power that Tenoch has, the actor. And he was so amazing and powerful, but he was also like so incredibly vulnerable and just there was just something about him deep down that I was like, this is like a good man, and he's like such a fierce protector for his people. And I was just about to spoil it, but like I loved him so much, and the way that he leads his people of oh my god, I just
Talokan.
Talokan. I I was just there this morning and it already left my mind the name. But the people of Talokan they just seemed so peaceful, and everyone was just like so good. And I don't know, there was just something about, I think the water aspect really helped too, how everyone was just so free flowing, and I was like, this is great. I loved it.
This is the scene when Namor takes, which first off, what a great, we can talk about the spoiler review, but why he's called Namor. I thought that was a really great touch and
Yay.
takes something from the comics and grounds it in this film that makes it believable. And I think that's the case with both Coogler MCU movies. There is a connection to the comics, but there's a weight given to them here, and every choice kind of makes sense. Almost every choice. We'll talk about the one thing that maybe didn't need to be in this movie. But yeah, you talk about like exploring Talokan, like that scene when Namor is showing a certain character around, and Ludwig Göransson's music, which is just beautiful and breathtaking. There's a lightness to it that I think is so pure, especially given that the most of the times we're seeing them in a war and in a combative state. Definitely agree with that. So, Hale, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm very glad they gave us some backstory of how Talokan became Talokan, and they brought in some historic facts about when the West came in to these certain regions in North America and South America, bringing about monkeypox. I thought that was a good touch, and how I mean, I'm nearly going to go into spoiler territory here, but how they brought in a certain material to tie in and create what we know of these creatures, the Talokan creatures. I thought that was very well done, and I like the water aspects. I thought, the world building when the certain character Anthony you were talking about was being presented and shown around, I thought it made sense that it's been 400 plus years. And so it's quite early on for a civilization to prosper in underwater. I just thought they could have shown more. And I was thinking more of Aquaman or Avatar and stuff like that. But it's different, and I understand that. So even though time has passed, they still held on to these Talican people. They held on to their roots of how they thought about the sun and just the center of all that. So I thought that was good. Yeah, and they're just basically blue people. So there's that.
Not underwater though.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought that was
that's
a
right.
nice. It was nice that they were their own skin color underwater. I thought that was
Mhm,
good.
mhm.
You could even get to a conversation about, Namor, I think, he doesn't hide who he is. He is very confident and very assured. And the fact that, he's shirtless the entire time kind of shows that he has a swagger to him. Meanwhile, everybody else is kind of like as we see, Shuri is building the Midnight Angel armor so that she can continue to like protect herself and protect her people and hide within the artifice of costumes. So again, just using the skin color, like the fact there is a distinction. They're not themselves when they're not in the water. I thought that it was a nice touch. And also then, you were able to visually see a difference in the big fights, which sometimes, it's like, who's fighting who, what is going on here?
Blue people.
And the blue people helped with that. Constance, so we jumped into the Talokan. You can feel free to mention them, but maybe now we can get into the film overall. What are your thoughts on this 30th Marvel Cinematic Universe film?
Oh, it's mostly positive, but it definitely feels like the 30th film. Black Panther, the first one, which I don't want to compare it to too much. The only comparison that I agree with is Black Panther 1 feels much more self-contained. Like you don't have to watch anything else to watch Black Panther 1, really.
Do you say that it's not self-contained compared to the first one, or
yes.
What I mean by that, does this film stand on its own with the first two Black Panthers, or do you need more Marvel properties on top of the first one?
It's not even about the other Marvel movies. I don't envy this team for having to make this movie with the circumstances that we have, but my fear is 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when people are like, oh, let's remember that thing we did, if it's not still going on. Or, oh, I'm jumping in on phase 7, but I want to go back to the beginning. If you're not alive right now, if you're a 10-year-old 10 years from now watching it, you don't have that connection to Chadwick where you were there when it happened. So I do worry about the real world context influencing how we all feel about this movie and how we think we're supposed to feel about this movie, and that it's going to get lost with time. Like, you think this is so important. An example I have is, like, I was alive, I was on the planet, I was in college when 9/11 happened, and now I'm starting to be around people who weren't even alive yet, and that's weird for me to have people in my life who are like, I wasn't even here. And I'm like, no, how can you not understand like, you won't know it the way I know it. You know what I mean? So I worry that that's going to hurt, not that we should be caring about what's going to happen 10, 20 years from now, but I am worried about the later feeling. Whereas Black Panther, you could watch that later and it's so contained that you're like, right, this is an individual, I can watch just this, and it is what it is.
It's funny you bring that up, because I did think, like, when people in the future, marathon these movies and they get to Black Panther, maybe there's some people who are like, wait, why isn't he in this movie? And they look it up. My response to that would be, as somebody who watched Glee after Cory Monteith passed away, when I got to the episode where they talk about it and they do their tribute, it hit me, I think, all the same, even though I only watched it on Netflix. I never watched it on television. I think and I think we can probably all agree on this, there is a deep, profound amount of respect. The movie's it's not completely centered. It's not like the plot is necessarily related to his passing. So I think it is able to stand apart from it while being still emotionally connected to it. It is definitely a sequel, and it's definitely balancing and juggling so much, maybe more than it had to, but I still think mostly everything that's in here, I think, is really well executed. Natalia, when you look at this movie, did you feel the runtime? It's 2 hours and 41 minutes. There's a lot going on here. We're introduced to a completely new nation. What say you about the requirements that Coogler had, and then also all the stuff that he includes on top of that?
I felt it drag a little bit. I think mainly just because the time that I went to go see it, I saw this morning at 10:50 and I hadn't eaten anything. So I was feeling like a little like,
It was.
Yep. Consequences of my own actions, honestly. But in terms of what Coogler had to do, I was like, you can't really fault him for that. There wasn't anything else that could be done. Massive respect to the man, because I don't know. I think he did it well. I feel like there were some parts that I don't know. I felt like as I was watching it, there were some times where they were making like certain cuts or something, and I was like, I feel like this scene had something else to it. Like there was something else, and they cut it away, and I don't know. I can't really think of anything right now.
Well, to that point, the editing is interesting because it's not edited, I feel like, in a normal blockbuster. There's
I
a lot of
agree.
dissolves from scene to scene, which if you study editing techniques, it's supposed to mean that time is collapsed, which is definitely an appropriate editing structure for grief, but it's also could symbolize the water, the fact that scenes
Yes.
dissolve in and out, like the flow
When yes,
of
there was one part with Namur where there was a fade of him and I think he was silhouetted and then we go
we
into
to
Wakanda.
Wakanda. This it's after he throws a helicopter into the ocean.
That's what it was.
That was one. We'll talk about that scene in specifics in the spoilers, but what an introduction. But yeah, it's edited, I think, interestingly, and like even like the scene from at the United Nations, which we've seen in the trailer, the way there's two scenes intercut with that one, and I found this movie disrupts a lot of the norms of how to make definitely a Marvel movie, but I think a Hollywood movie in general, and I think mostly that comes out of Coogler having, I think, the profound confidence in not forcing the audience how to feel. There's a common line of like, you're focused on the how when the why is the more important question. And there are a lot of moments of quiet reflection where he doesn't give you the answers. Hollywood loves answers, but grief doesn't have any. And I really respected that he doesn't force you to feel a certain way. He gives you this space to connect with the movie as however you feel it fit. And that's why I think Constance, I think this will be able to translate, because I think no matter how you feel, he doesn't force you to feel just for Chadwick. He feels it's about everything. It really is an ensemble piece. It's really about a whole nation, a whole viewing body. So I found a lot of these choices really, really like not beyond sympathy. I felt a connected empathy with the movie. I felt like I was breathing with the movie, which is a rare feeling in such a Hollywood big movie to feel so personal. So Hale, any final thoughts before we go into spoilers? Because I think we've been skirting around.
Speaking about the runtime, it didn't drag. I think I knew it was about to like, oh, it's the start, it's the middle, and it's the end. And partly because we all knew going into this that Namor would be the bad guy. There won't be any other surprises. We know they're going to fight each other. We just didn't know how it's going to end. Now, speaking about the funeral procession and Chadwick's tribute, I thought the opening credits was a very nice touch to get us back into that roller coaster of not knowing that he was about to pass away because he kept his sickness
So let's
secret.
let's go into spoiler thoughts, because I think that I will say I was shocked. I did not think we would be even for 2 minutes. And it's really only one shot, which that beautiful, very chaotic one take as we're following Shuri around her lab. I thought he would be past when the movie starts.
Yeah.
And the fact that he wasn't for like a minute and a half was shocking to me. What I really loved, and what I then knew that this was going to be really interesting, was that you have this very joyous processional.
I love that part. I loved it.
Yeah. And then you cut into like Ramonda and Shuri's heads, and it's very somber. And again, just Coogler telling you there's not one way to deal with this emotion. You saw Okoye crying, which I love seeing women pallbearers, because you had the Dora Milaje carrying the tomb. So I just love this whole opening because it really sets up that there's not one way to grieve. There's not one way to see things. I think he honors as many people as he can. And then, just Shuri then going back to the tomb and holding it. And we get that beautiful shot of Wakanda, only then like the massiveness of the entire nation, and then cut to Shuri just breathing, and then a dissolve into the Marvel logo. And I don't know about you, the first time I saw it, I've never felt the revered silence that I felt during that Marvel Studios logo. It was beautiful. Constance, what are your thoughts? The first 5 minutes of the movie, T'Challa's passing. What do you think about it?
Um, I liked it, but I have a story I gotta tell, but it will take too long, more than we have here. Um, but I do think no matter what they would have chosen, someone's gonna be unhappy because people just want to be unhappy. I don't understand why. I would not want to be the one who goes, this is what, okay, what are we going to do moving forward, Constance? I don't want that responsibility because I don't think I'm a natural enough storyteller to be like, this is something that's agreeable enough because this is not our first celebrity passing. They have done other things with other people, and it all has its own version of a backlash. You know, like, oh, if you do the whole put their face on someone else's body, it's so uncanny valley and it's disrespectful. And so I feel like it doesn't matter what they would have done, it would have been met with some resistance by someone. It didn't bother me. You know, I would not have been unhappy if they recast eventually, not for this movie. But I don't need them to either. So does that make sense?
Yeah, which we'll talk about. I think we'll close with the mid-credit scene and the future of Black Panther. To me, it was when hearing Lupita Nyong'o talk about the relief she felt reading the script, knowing that she didn't have to pretend that he didn't pass. That for me, that's it. It's if the filmmakers, like Ryan Coogler talked about, not maybe like he can't make any movie, let alone this movie, after the passing. If this was the only way he thought he could make this movie, then that's the only way I think we should, like, that we respect the effort it took to make the movie.
Yes.
And the emotional journey it took. I think now's a good time because, you know, now we can say this is Shuri's movie. And I think that is partly why this choice works. Because Letitia Wright, and we'll talk about Angela Bassett, a lot of respect for her. And we've already mentioned Tenoch Huerta. But I felt Letitia Wright, like, as much as people are saying Oscar worthy for Angela Bassett, I think Letitia Wright is just on there. She is such a difficult journey in this movie. She is, you know, light and funny when she's like with Okoye and Riri at MIT, but then there are some moments of deep anger and guilt and frustration and unknowingness. She was absolutely breathtaking. I think up there with Elizabeth Olsen, probably is like giving the best performance in the entire MCU. And Robert Downey Jr., of course. Natalia, what do you think about Shuri and how she kind of has to inherit the movie?
Oh God, I loved, again, I'm gonna go like near the end. Well, no. This movie is so long. At her mother's funeral, when
What a surprise that was too. Sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
Insane. At her funeral, when M'Baku goes to her and is asking her about like what she's going to do, and she's like the young one that scoffs tradition. I'm like, yeah. And it's just, I don't know, her relationship with her expectations is just amazing to me, because I thought that it was going to go one way of her like just completely scoffing at the whole thing and just not doing anything with it. And then she is able to, but she does it in her own way. And that's what I find like absolutely amazing. And I just, yeah. And she was an emotional powerhouse. And I loved that so much.
Yeah. And she was still Shuri, which I thought was important.
Yes.
You could still see the same character introduced in the first film, just having dealt this unfortunate tragedy. Now, the one thing I want to talk about, and why on the first watch, I will say, when I left this first screening, I was very torn on the movie. I felt an emptiness, and I described it. You can follow my tumultuous experience with this movie on Twitter, because I described it at first as a hollow film born from a pure heart. And I think part of the reason that I felt that is because I could so clearly see that this wasn't a story written for Shuri. It was written for T'Challa, and that original draft kind of is like a ghost over this movie. However, I've seen it 3 times now, and I think what I've started to realize is that Coogler is emphasizing the lack so that you better understand the whole. You feel something missing, and isn't like the fact that the story moves faster than the characters wanted to, like, isn't that what grief is all about? It's life is going faster than you have time to process it and accept it. So it ended up working for me, but I think it's because I wasn't prepared for that final scene where she's just sitting with it, and she will sit with it for the rest of her life, as will Letitia Wright, as will all of us. There's no like she did. It's really important that she doesn't walk away from that beach, that it ends on the beach.
Mhm.
I thought that was a really important moment. Yeah, Letitia Wright is fantastic. Should we get into the fact that, you know, her becoming the Black Panther, at least for shortly? We don't know what's going on in the future with M'Baku seemingly challenging for the throne. I would not want to be the person to go up against him. But what do we think about her short tenure as the Black Panther?
Constance.
I don't know. Like, so if we want to start listing things that we like versus what we don't like, I had a story about the runtime. The movie is long, and usually I don't care about such things. Now, unfortunately, I'm too aware of everything around me. I had a very bad audience for the first, I want to say, hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, that's a long
People
time.
were walking around, like, even during that whole thing and the tribute, everything, like there was a lot of motion. People are on their phones, and there's kids going up and down. Like, it was just a lot of action. And I'm like, this is supposed to be a very quiet moment, and they ruined that for me. So I couldn't take it in. So I didn't have the chance. I've only seen it once. I'm going to see it again, but that was such a bad experience. I'm like, I don't know. Should I wait for it to be here so I can control my environment? So that kind of ruined things for me. I wasn't like sitting here going, ooh, who's Black Panther going to be? I wasn't worried about that. To me, this is not some big mystery of like, who's it going to be? And since it happens in the comics, not that I'm an expert, it's just, you know, you watch videos of people who write comics for a living, or they own comic book stores for a living, and so they talk about it. I'm like, okay, so she becomes Black Panther in the comics, so it's not like they're going way off book where they're like, let's just make up crap, you know, because they already had to because of Chadwick passing away. And I agree with you. It does feel like it's not her story. So I have issue with that, but I don't have issue with her being Black Panther. And of course, she would make herself an awesome suit, and her entrance was great. The audience got better as we went forward. When she falls from the sky and lands, that got the biggest applause. And I was so nervous. I was like, is everyone going to be mad that it's a woman, not a man, because of this whole MCU hate that's out there? And it's a very female-centric cast. Oh, no. This crowd was like, yeah.
Can we reclaim MCU as like a positive thing?
Yeah, it starts here.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand where the arguments come. Like, I heard one person explain what they mean by that, and now that I've heard that argument, I can't unsee it. I'm like, okay, I see how Marvel is at least giving them the crumbs of like, you could put that together and have a leg to stand on. So I was nervous, but that audience reaction, it got me more excited about seeing her donning that mantle. So,
well, even no, you go, Sohail.
Well, my audience was very quiet, and I think that fitted the movie a lot because there were a lot of emotional scenes and the opening credits, as I told you. I think that was very nice. As it comes to Shuri, we knew she was going to be Black Panther. Like, that was a spoiler even before the movie began production. But, you know, I don't think there were enough scenes to show the grandeur of Black Panther with her. I felt the only scene that we saw was her landing at M'Baku's area and speaking with M'Baku. But she was also queen at that point as well. So I was worried, like, will the audience decipher what's going on here? But plus there weren't enough action scenes unless it was with Namor to show that she was Black Panther. But other than that, I had no issue. You know, I was quite glad she was. And I would say Letitia, outside of her controversy, she's a good actress. And I believed every emotion she went through. I thought she had a lot to do, and she did it very well.
Yeah. It's funny because I think that what Constance and Sale are talking about as far as like her role as the Black Panther, it doesn't have the grandeur, it has the gravitas, but it's not a symbol in this movie that is like inspirational. And for a superhero movie to say that the superhero is not the like resolution of your arc is like, it's not like, oh, once you have the suit on, everything's fixed. Like I love that this movie says it dispels with the pretense that a superhero can save you from pain, which is so rare and why I think this is so brilliant of a film. But like the fact that it seemed like, and maybe this can contribute to the length a little bit. We don't know who the protagonist is.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of doesn't tell you that it's Shuri at the beginning. You're like, maybe it's Ramonda, and not forcing any character to take the center, and not having the Black Panther be in the movie till the end, I think shows a real understanding of these characters. Like, you don't have to play this role until you're ready, and you don't have to be like, you don't have to make these choices that move the story forward until you're ready to make them. So, and then once she does, like, it's a brutal fight. Like, it's one of the better 1v1 fights, I think, in the MCU between her and Namor, when she takes off his leg, his
little
his
wing.
His wing.
Yeah. Yeah. And even just like the fact that because this movie's all about water and the calming kind of cyclical nature of healing with water, the fact that she like burns him with fire, like it's such a juxtaposing
That was
those two
amazing.
elemental forces. Yeah, it's just that end fight was really, really incredible. Natalia, any more thoughts on Shuri before we move on to the other member of this family, Angela Bassett?
Let me think.
I thought her costume, her purple suit was great.
Yeah.
It was a very cool costume.
No, I do agree with what you've all said, especially with her in the suit near the end. I don't know. I think no, I liked it when she got stabbed. I know that sounds like a terrible way to open, but like I don't know. There's just been so much death in this movie of that same family. I'm like, what the hell are we doing here?
Well, even because then the editing, like it starts to like cut to black, like with the heartbeat, and then the
Exactly. And she's like,
cinematography.
she's shutting her eye.
I think they also bring the color down. Like the shot gets discolored when she gets hit. It's really well done. But I should mention before we move on to Ramonda, staying on Shuri, I thought one of the best scenes in the movie, I think we'll probably all agree, is when she takes the heart-shaped herb and we get a little reunion with Michael B. Jordan.
Yes.
What a
I
great
loved
scene.
it.
I mean, beautifully shot. Autumn Durrell Akapau is a legend. She is incredible. It's just so beautiful in how she shoots this. But that scene in particular is just so with the purples and then the fire coming up.
And the fire, yeah.
What did we think? Was it a surprise? And then what do you think of the scene?
Yes. I did not know that. I don't know if that was leaked. I did not know it. And my audience didn't either. They were quiet by that point. They had quieted down. So when that happened, everyone was just like, it was like in Spider-Man Homecoming when Peter goes to the door and it opens and it's the Vulture. And people were like, it was just like that in terms of reaction. And I was like, well, this is what this feels like. I miss, because again, I've been on the planet long enough where like I remember being in a world where you were genuinely surprised in the theater, and it's such a wonderful feeling, and I miss it. But yes, so good. And I'm like, I wonder, would that have been part of the script if we had Chadwick? Like, if this was really going to be his story, would he have had a moment where something happens and he has to have a similar experience? Because I hope so, because I really like what he brought thematically to this movie. It didn't feel like just a hollow cameo, like, let's just bring him because we have him. It really felt like it had a point, and it made it feel dark. And I was like, just when I think this movie's going to zig, it zags. And I felt like the movie did that again and again. And that was very refreshing. So.
No, that was one of the moments when I realized the original draft was here, because I think that definitely was written for T'Challa. It still works, I think, because I think bringing him in really, confronts the audience and links those two characters. But yeah, it was Michael B. Jordan. I mean, he just comes in with his charisma, mic drop,
his sweater.
It's really, really great. Natalia, thoughts on Mr. Creed?
Yes. Two things. One, I don't know. When I saw her swim out into the throne room, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. I didn't think that it was going to be Michael B. Jordan, but I assumed that it was not going to be something like this. because of the location, because it's always been like this open glade and the giant tree and all of the panthers.
It wasn't for Michael B. Jordan when he went to go visit Sterling K. Brown, his father. He went into the apartment.
Yes. But I like that it was different because it did feel specific for Shuri, even though this was probably pretty first draft. And I was really surprised. It was so good because you got to see this kind of inner battle with Shuri on how she should move forward. On if she's going to be noble like her brother, or if she's gonna get shit done.
Like her cousin.
Like her cousin. Yeah.
So Hale, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm not a big Michael B. Jordan fan, but I respect that he had to come back. You know, he had to appease some fans. And I don't know if it was ruined for me that he was coming back. I think just being on social media and hearing his name associated with the sequel, you know, I put two and two together. But I was surprised when I saw him, so maybe I was part of that audience with Constance where that big shock happened, but more like a mini confused gasp came out of me. What I will tell you, if I can just segue just a little bit, is I think it was the starting scene of the boat where we meet the Talokans and they're trying to figure out how to retrieve this vibranium. And, you know, they used the sirens to distract people and put them in trance. But, you know, when I was sitting eating, right, you know, as I do, I eat while I eat movies. Eat movies, no, watch movies.
There you go.
I eat movies and I watch cooking. No. So I'm watching it and they're just going overboard and they're dying. And I'm like, wait, how long has it been since we watched a Marvel film where we see people actually die? You know,
Yeah.
and I felt like that was missing and I was very confused. I was like, is this a kid's movie? I'm very confused. Like,
When
why
that
people die?
helicopter went down, I was like,
I was like,
oh.
they annihilated everyone. And I was, you know, in a way, it shocked me as well a little bit because, and then it showed like how Ryan Coogler just tried to put out a great film, and I'm glad they showed that there's real consequences, you know, trying to do what you're trying to do, and that includes death. So I think, sorry for my segue, but you know, that was quite powerful as well.
No, it was a great scene. We got to see What If star Leica Bell, who voices Natasha Romanoff on What If. She was the point person for the sequence. Yeah, it was like a straight up like horror sequence. You know, the music was like very similar, like Midsommar, with the sirens. Yeah,
Midsommar.
Midsommar. Well, isn't that how you say it? It's
I don't
not
know.
Midsommar. It's
I've heard,
Midsommar.
I've heard the Swedish people.
Namor, Namor,
No,
Midsommar. I hear
It's
so many
Namor.
different
It's
things.
Namor.
But yeah, it was a really effective way to introduce the Talokan and their threat. Because I think it could, what a fear could have been is, oh, they're just, you know, the underwater Wakandans, and I think they're definitely not. Especially Namora, and I'm forgetting the other guy,
Yeah.
that gets into a fight with Okoye on the bridge. With my lord, that's a great.
I love that fight so much. I think it was because there was absolutely no music, and I feel like music really carries it, and it was just and it was like guttural noises and everything. I loved it. I loved it.
I was thinking why there wasn't any music happening, so I think that was a deliberate choice there, I think.
No, and
But yeah, let's go to Queen.
Yeah, I'll just say, because we're going to wrap up the
Queen.
Killmonger section.
Yeah.
I think that scene also really sets up the end fight very well. And as your comics aficionado, it reminded me a little bit of Amazing Spider-Man 122, which is the issue after Gwen Stacy dies. And how that issue ends is that Spider-Man kills the Green Goblin for killing Gwen Stacy, and he leaves with like that didn't fix what I was upset about. And I felt like this movie is as close. We got it a little bit in the No Way Home, but I think this one there was just a lot more just history and like just it's really between the two of them. I just really like it was a lot more anger, and I think because the emotion I think is more grounded in all of us, that I thought that was well done. And also, if you know the comic cover of Shuri as the Black Panther, it's her holding the mask, which they recreate when she picks up her helmet for the first time. I thought that was very good. Let's talk about Angela Bassett, who we knew we were going to get just devastated from the first trailer. That scene with her and Okoye, it may be the best acted scene in the MCU. It is so damn good.
It was frightening. That's what it was.
That was a queen. That was a queen right there.
Mm-hmm.
The queen. Yes. I am happy that they did kill her, because I think Marvel needs to not be afraid to have real, kind of like Aunt May, I know there's similarities there, but I'm like, no, this is important. And I don't think she was fridged. I don't think this is like, oh, you needed to do that in order to make Shuri do what she's doing. I'm like, no, I think it's just because that's the overall theme is grief, and how sometimes in your quest to heal, or you're trying to catch up to life, as you talked about earlier, it's moving too fast, mistakes are made, and then you will lose more. So I do think that just adds to the weight. But yeah, her performance, beautiful. I loved her speech at the UN or whatever it is.
Well, yeah. I think you could see that as confident as she was, because the scene that follows her firing Okoye, you could see how broken she is, and she's just trying to keep it together. And that moment when she gives the "I'm queen of the most powerful nation in the world, and my entire family is gone. Have I not given everything?" You just see this woman break. And I think from that moment on, even with Shuri coming back to her, she is just so distraught. It's a beautiful performance, and especially because I don't think we see enough of that type of character when we depict grief. We see, the Peter Parkers. We see young people. We see if we see parental figures, a lot of times I think we see fathers, because that apparently is the more, that hits you more. Look at Godfather, for example. We see, when he thinks Michael is dead, we see Vito react to it.
Spoiler.
Yeah, well, spoilers for a 50-year-old movie. Or is it the other way around? It
doesn't matter.
Yeah. Point being, I don't think
it's an old movie.
We definitely don't see women of color, but I don't think we see mothers of color get this type of role. And I thought it was really important to see, especially because so many, unfortunately, mothers of color have had to be in a situation like this. We're just coming off of the release of Till, and look how long it took to get that movie made. And I think her performance, I think it honors a lot of these people. It's just Angela Bassett, I think she understood the assignment fully. She's incredible. Natalia Sahel.
Oh, she was great. She had the best monologues ever. I really liked her UN speech, and then in conjunction with her firing Okoye speech, because they're so completely different, but they still have weight and power to her in the beginning, and then how she's lost it when she's at that point. I was like, this is great.
And consequence. There's actual, like, when Okoye loses Shuri, there's consequences, which in any other superhero movie, there wouldn't be. They'd be like,
there would be no consequence.
Like, in any other superhero movie, Okoye would say what she says, I want to go get the princess, and they would have been like, all right, we're sending you, as we saw with, like, Andy Serkis in the first Black Panther. Like, we're just going to go. Like, this one, no. Like, we're going to deal with this. And that's what I think, too, because when she died the first time I saw it, I was like, well, do you have to do this? Because, you're conflating like a real death in Chadwick with the fake death in Ramonda, but I think in some way it works because it really shows that like story and life converge on film, and you never know where something is created within you and where it originates on the screen. So I think it worked, and I think it worked because Angela Bassett just completely sells it, and just seeing her like after going to get Riri and that beautiful shot of her like dress billowing in the water, but then her face down, it hurt, man.
Yeah,
it hurt. So, hey, what are your thoughts on Miss Bassett, Queen
I
Bassett?
mean, we'll talk about her monologue, which should be the cutscene for her Oscar nomination right there, is just shouting at Okoye and basically shouting at her own people, like, I'm a grieving mother, and she believes, you know, there's no one left. And that was very powerful. I thought she was going to kill Okoye when she got up. I was like, oh, Okoye, you should not have spoken. You should not have asked permission. But okay, like yes, Okoye should have, been more careful. But she could have known that this mission would go awry like that. But she is a general. Should she have been stripped? I feel maybe not, but it gets resolved after. We all know it's fine. When it comes to her death, the cinematography of the shot of Namor doing that. I'm just going to say a water bomb
Those were
and
so
just
well,
I love
like,
and when it just
mhm.
burst and it
and the
broke the window
slow-mo, so much slow-mo in this movie and
and
done
you
very
see the
well.
crown just going off her, and I'm like, okay, I didn't think she was going to die. And then we see her trying to get
Resuscitated.
Riri. Yeah,
Oh, get Riri and then
yeah,
be resuscitated.
Riri. But as she was going up, I was like, oh wow, she's doing amazing. Look at her. She's nearly there. And then we see her flat down, and I'm like, wait a second, how did we get from her barely, like nearly being victorious to her being suffocated? I was drowning. I was very confused. I
The
feel
fact
like they
that
should have,
water brings that death, and bringing water like full circle
but
too.
they should have like shown her struggling a bit more. I feel like she was just swimming. I didn't know she was actually nearly out of breath. If they had told us that or showed it, conveyed it, I would have believed that, by looking at her face down, that she was dead. I didn't. I was actually very shocked that they actually killed her off because I didn't see a struggle. But then taking
Similar,
into account of her whole story, it does make sense that she is gone for um, Letitia to actually go forth and become Black Panther.
well, similar to the opening. Shuri's not there when her brother dies, when her mother dies, and it's just almost like that was her last moment, was saving this child. Which, again, it's kind of multiverse of madness as far as like that whole thing was about saving her two kids, but I think it really hits home here. It's all about saving Riri. One life is worth all of this. And there's even like subtle things because I think they say that Riri didn't know that her designs were used by the CIA.
Yeah,
She says
yeah.
like she built it for class. Like I think she didn't know because
Yeah.
why would they
No, she
tell
didn't.
her?
No.
And that's another thing the UN scene talks about, and then Namor's whole art, like the ideas about colonialism in this movie. He doesn't hit you over the head with it, but it's there, and I think it again shows a real Ryan Coogler man. He's just such. I hope he takes the time he needs after this movie, and he comes back with just a beautiful rest of his filmography because we are lucky to have him. Natalia.
I just want to hammer something down. The enemy of this film is not Namor, but as always, it's just a bunch of colonialism. White people.
Yes. So speaking of white people, let's talk about Martin Freeman and the surprise for me, which was Julia
Louis-Dreyfus
her
with
third
her little
MCU,
purple streak.
yes, her third MCU appearance after debuting in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episodes 5 and 6. I think they could have just done the scene when Martin Freeman is jogging, and that could have been it for him.
I loved him.
I mean, he was fun, but like they talk about that America's gonna destabilize Wakanda, and then we don't really get any payoff with that. This was the one thing I'm like, you don't need it. And I feel that maybe there was a fear that the movie, like people would need the MC. Because I will say, when Killmonger came on screen, that was the first time my audience audibly reacted to something. And maybe there was the fear that without those Easter eggs, the movie, maybe people wouldn't enjoy it as much. But I think maybe they should have been a little bit more confident in what they were doing, and just that you didn't need it. I don't think it makes the movie worse, because I do think, again, their arc, their scenes talk to the colonialism, the fact that the white people are on the outskirts and they're trying to take control over this thing. But given that we don't get a payoff in this movie, maybe it'll Ultron. Maybe down the line we'll get more clarity as far as what was going on in this movie. But I don't think it was absolutely necessary. But it doesn't tank the movie in any way, shape, or form. Constance, you were nodding as if you maybe agree with their inclusion.
Oh yeah. So I was like, oh, is this what tokenism is? Since we don't normally experience that. I'm like, I don't need a white person in this movie in order to enjoy it. I love the Wakandans so much, and I wanted to get to know, Namor and his race.
Michaela Cole walks in and out of this movie.
Now, yeah, I love that. I love Martin Freeman, but I don't need to see him. I'm like, no, to get back to your editing notes, I forget what scene it is, but we're somewhere else, and then we just cut to his house, and she's there, and he's all like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm hungry." I'm like,
"Hungry? Your olive oil's about to go bad."
It was right after the second funeral with M'Baku,
and then we get an Anderson Cooper exposition.
Yeah,
Not exposition, but like
that's the part of the editing that I hated. It felt like, how do we get from this scene to this scene? We don't know, and it felt like it was in a very bad spot. I was like, why is this here? You're really messing up the flow right now. Like, I hated it. Not only did they feel unnecessary, but I hate where their scenes are placed in this movie. They're not organic. They feel very forced. This feels very much like, but we're Marvel. Look, here's our Marvelness. Like, I don't care. I don't want it. Please cut it out. Like, everyone's like, oh, make this movie 20 minutes short. I'm like, I know how you do that. You cut all their scenes. No problem.
Honestly, all you needed was like, I think I would have been fine if we get the scene with Ross leading them to Riri, and then maybe you get one scene with Julie Louis-Dreyfus. That's all you really needed. I don't think we cut back to them like multiple times, like, guys, we don't need this. Especially if it doesn't pay off by the end. I would say post-credit scene, but I think the movie perfectly ends with its mid-credit scene, and I don't want to touch it. So I think we need to talk about the MVP of this movie, who gives such a support to every single moment and to every single character, and that's Lupita Nyong'o's Nakia. She is exactly what the movie needs at every single moment. She does not, you immediately look to her whenever she's on screen, but she doesn't there's no vanity in her performance. There's no vanity in any of these performances, but I just thought she was so confident. I just loved she reminded me, honestly, of the glory days of Black Widow, when Scarlett Johansson would just walk into a movie and be exactly what the scene needed and then walk out. Like Winter Soldier level Black Widow. That's what Nakia was for me in this movie. She looked fantastic. She was incredible. And then that mid-credit scene, which we can get to maybe now, she was just beautiful, and just how joyous and light she was. As somebody else who had come maybe to already understand her grief, I thought she was incredible. What do we think about Lupita Nyong'o?
I loved the I had forgotten that she was in this, because there was so little of her even in the first one, that I wasn't sure where she was going to pop up. And then we were in ID, and I was like, oh, this is fun. She's a school she's a principal. She has students, and she's still very caring and everything. And I love that so much.
It comes in at the hour mark. I did look at it this time. So they hold on her. But once she comes in, you're like, where have you been?
There were cops. I really liked her. Do you hear that? Or is it just...
I heard it.
Good. I really liked her a lot. I think that she's just like effortless, and also, again, like super powerful, and she's like, I don't know, there's something about her that I really enjoy. And there was she's just so caring, and also at the end when she comes back to Wakanda, she's just so understanding finally of her own grief and her own travel with that. And I was like, this is great because every single person was like, why didn't I see you at the funeral? And she was like, I was processing, and because I had a child. But
Yeah, which honestly, if we're giving out Disney Plus shows to people from Wakanda, I would give it to her. I think
Yes,
and she's an Oscar-winning actress. She deserves like more
everything.
because she's
she
so
deserves a
good.
little show.
Yeah, I mean, she deserves a movie,
Yes.
but I'll take a show. Um, the other kind of main character that we haven't touched on yet, I feel, and then we can talk about the mid-credit scene and wrap up our discussion here, is M'Baku, Winston Duke, providing a lot of the comedy here, but I think also being a great scene partner, and an understanding scene partner in the woods after the second funeral with Ramonda,
I love that.
with Shuri. What do we think about M'Baku? He definitely had more to do, I think, in the second movie, and they used him well. Even the carrot.
I love the carrot. I was gonna say he came in first time was he chomp. Good for him.
I just wanted more of him. So yeah, less evil CIA people and more M'Baku, please.
Mm-hmm.
That should be the pull quote for the Blu-ray.
Yes.
Tenoch Huerta as Namor. What do we think about this character? What do we think about his cultural connectivity, his performance? I mean, we haven't mentioned it enough, but Ruthie Carter's costume design and Hannah Beachler's production design, the artistic design of this movie and creating his look was incredible. All the work they do is legendary. But what do we think? What do we think about Namor, one of the oldest Marvel characters now coming to the screen for the first time?
As we all know, I thoroughly enjoyed him. I will now be saying something that happened smack at the end of the movie, which is the last time that we ever saw him, which was when he was doing that little painting when he was being a little artist. Put that in the MoMA of him versus the Black Panther. I was like, this is some good shit. Like I don't know. There's something about that I was like, this is lore. This is things to come and things to happen. And I was just like, I loved it so much. And I think that's something that I really liked about his home there and how it felt so he made it a representation of his mother's culture above land, and a thing that he never got to experience. And I love that so much. This lovely little hut, and then inside is just wall to wall of his own story that man has created for him that he takes with pride, and how it is a beautiful mix of both his mother's life on land before living down in the water. And I just like, I loved it so much. Just beautiful storytelling, beautiful set design, just beautiful everything.
Well, just the fact that it touches on the fact that a lot of these cultures were pushed out of their homes, and the fact that they resort to
baby.
Yeah, and the smallpox elements
And
that
the
was
smallpox,
really,
yes,
was really cool.
So sorry, did I say
smallpox, not
monkeypox
cool.
before? I'm so sorry about that. I meant smallpox.
I don't remember, so that's okay.
Yeah,
something pox.
There was a pox.
Also, I gotta say, after he kills Ramonda with the water bomb, the way he just goes floom into the ocean.
Oh,
I mean, his powers, I think, symbolize who he is. He was a character who had to fight for his life and his people's lives so often that he never gave people a second chance because
he was a child in this.
Yeah. Because he knows that if he gives people a second chance, he may wind up dead, or his people may wind up dead. And I think they really well established that there was a gentleness to him, the painting showing Shuri around. But if you're on his bad side, oh boy. And that action scene in Wakanda and the flooding, it was just so well done. And his anger, he was a very complex character. And I thought Tenoch Huerta just did a fantastic job. And the movie, I feel, never pats itself on the back for how it used the Mayan Mexican culture as like their foundation, where I feel like it could have been. There could have been like, hey, look at us, we're being inclusive. I don't think the movie ever does that. As a white viewer, I feel like I never got that sense. Maybe other people will feel that they are, but I thought they were very respectful. Natalia.
Back to me again. I also really liked when what's Lupita's character's name again?
Nakia.
Nakia. Thank you. When Nakia went to Mexico and she got to flaunt a little bit of her Spanish, I was like, this is great because she's also Mexican.
She's Mexican. Yeah.
But when she found that Doña, that woman there that she was speaking to, how quickly and just very well done she shifted from Spanish to the
Telecom.
God.
Telecom.
To telecom. Yeah. I think Trevor Noah said the actual language, but I can't remember. Into that, I was like, this is great. And it was just like an outskirts little Puebla thing. And I really liked it, how it was such a reflection of the need to maintain one's ancestral culture, which is something that to this day, your own Latin family will end up telling you to try to marry a white person so then you can keep the blood safe, to kind of breed out your indigenous heritage. And that kind of willingness to hold on to that culture when she was in that little pueblita with that doña, that I loved it so much.
Also, this is a really niche thing for me. Great subtitles for other languages. The font was really good.
And the color was nice.
And the colors to differentiate the different languages. I was like, because I get so tired when like you can't read the language or the font is really stupid. And
or like how sometimes Netflix does it. It's like in parentheses, speaking Spanish.
Well, yeah, it's like, it always bothers me when like, especially because like you'll see a certain subtitle in the theater and then it'll be different when you watch it at home. And I know that can't be the case for this. Just really niche thing, but the font and color on the subtitles.
Ooh, and also on that, when they were speaking Spanish, it was well translated, because sometimes I would be watching it and I'm just like, shit ain't adding up at all.
And they did the Spanish scenes, like the last scene in the movie with Namor and Namora. It's not, they don't do the thing that a lot of movies in Hollywood movies do where they speak in the language and then when the important part of the dialogue, they shift to English.
They were all speaking.
The only time they do that in this movie is Okoye says, "My dear mother" in Wakandan, and then says, and it's not Wakandan, I think it's Osa, whatever it is.
We can't do the clicky thing.
Yeah, I can try. But it's not gonna be great. That's not why we're here. We're not here to teach you a language. Trevor Noah knows it. You can learn from him. But she goes, my dear mother and Osa, and then says in English, "I've given everything." And I think that makes sense because she then says, "I've given everything" in English. So you want those two things to rhyme together. Again, the poetry. But I think for the most part, the Spanish, I think, was really well integrated and it made sense. It really worked for the characters. Namor, Constance Sahel, what do you think?
I have me.
Please go ahead. Yes.
You know, in a world that is so bombarded with superhero films, and this is the 30th one, with every new one that comes out, right before the movie starts, you're a little afraid, like, what are they going to do to make this feel fresh? Why make the movie? So what this movie does right, it does so right. And Marvel does have a villain problem, and it's weird to call him a villain, so we'll say villain. We'll use that term really loosely. It's like villain to Wakanda, but he doesn't start there. What's really refreshing is his character is very much like, I'm going to reach out my hand and say, can we do this together? Because we are the same. We are both being targeted. You know, like, don't think for a second, if you didn't think to yourself to make your force field, that they wouldn't have come in and pillaged your precious vibranium long ago, or the second that they're able to, that they're going, you know, that's a very good argument to stand on. And I like that he didn't just come in with twirling his mustache like, I'm evil. You know, you understand where he's coming from. And I like that violence was not his first approach. He's like, no, just like a mama bear, you only get provoked if you come after the cubs, you know, like, you're not coming around the cubs, we're cool, you know. So I like that they took their time. This is where the length of the movie is a good thing. Let's take our time and like, oh, we have to put him in a place where now we have to go to violence.
Yeah.
You know, so I think how they set him up is very important and so well done. So I really appreciate that.
So Hale?
I think Namor is a great character. I think Tenoch Huerta is someone to look out for, especially in the MCU. So I'm very excited what happens next and the storylines when it comes to the Fantastic Four, but I'll leave it at that. He was very menacing. I mean, to just point out that your own mother is that someone's mother is dying and you're going to become queen, and he says that to her while she's in anguish, and this is Shuri just crying out for her mother. I mean, he just threatens her because they mean nothing to him. You know, he's already been having to bury or mourn the losses of his own people, those who Nakia and Shuri have killed in Talokan. So he's like an eye for an eye, and you just have to watch out. I thought that was very powerful, and he was very menacing and threatening. So that was good to see. A lot of powerful moments and dialogues here, which is very good and very much needed in the MCU to give it more breadth. So I think, you know, just on Namor, I think it was brilliant. And when it comes to the way how he needs water to survive, even though he's part human, I think that was good. I think that was maybe it's a point, maybe excuse me, something of a thing to watch out afterwards in following movies, how that would be used against him as well when it comes to heat. And just like the powerful moment where Shuri just says Wakanda forever, and I thought they both would die at that same time.
Yeah, I think that's why she said it, because I think she also thought that she would die.
Yeah. But I thought that the explosion was so, it felt it was, and I thought it was more powerful. It would consume him, but it was only his back that was covered in scars and just deep, terrible third-degree burns. And she's about to kill him, and you can just see he can't do anything. You know, either he's dead, and that's it. So he needed to see a way out. And I think, as Anthony and Constance were saying, and also Natalia, is that he wanted help at the start. You know, he wanted Wakandans to be allies, but more so to help him. I feel it wasn't like a level playing field. I think he just wanted their help whenever it was convenient for him. But it was a convincing argument that he has a powerful army and they can help each other going forward. So I'd like to see that alliance build coming forward. So yeah, that's all I got to say. I just can't wait to see more.
But Riri Williams, Ironheart, which I thought she was a lot of fun, really beating
so funny.
like, yeah, just you're just so funny, and I think she is not a token character, and she still could have been a token character as far as like what she represents as far as the MCU and being connected to Stark Tech. She is not. Dominique Thorne, I think, is a very compassionate presence in some of the scenes she has with Shuri. She sells her action sequences. I'm very much looking forward to this character getting her own Disney Plus show, and hopefully she stays in the Wakandan corner, like Black Widow's kind of stayed in the Captain America corner, even though going off in different places, because I really loved her and loved how she fit into this world. I thought it felt like it worked really well how they took this character who has never really dealt with the Wakandans and put her in there.
I liked her a lot. I thought she was really funny. Her suit, her final action battle suit was very action figure-y. She had like flared pants, wide leg pants for her legs there. I was like, this is hilarious. The way her helmet was shaped, again, everything was like really triangular and everything, and I was like, this is a decision. But I think it's kind of fine because Iron Man was like super square and boxy. So yeah, I think didn't Shuri mention that like her suit's gonna need a little tinkering or something, or was she talking about the car?
But she
Or both?
left the suit. She couldn't
Uh,
take the suit.
she could
So
not
Well, it was
take the
destroyed,
suit.
and yeah.
yeah, so well, no, the new suit she
This
gets.
the new
She had
new
to leave.
Oh,
the
right,
new
sorry,
suit.
yeah, that's right,
Um,
yeah, correct.
so yeah, looking forward to her as well as another young Avenger. Now
Very
this
young.
time, very young. We don't
Very
know.
young. That's a child.
We don't
That's
know. This is a child Avengers. This is Avenger daycare.
yes.
But we don't know what's going to happen. But we do meet T'Challa's son. That and it was the fact that this is my son. This Hussein, I think is the name. This is your auntie. Um,
Yes.
it was a really beautiful scene. And then when he says that my name is T'Challa, son of King T'Challa, and it really hits you, you know, that nobody's ever really gone. We take their name, we take their image
Their
and their
legacy.
soul,
Yeah.
and just the Letitia Wright's reaction to that line. It was so beautiful, and the three of them. The camera was so close and intimate as they all were like laughing in a melancholy sort of way. I thought, as far as mid credit scenes, it was probably the best scene that they've ever done.
Yeah.
And it was very touching. It was a beautiful note to end the movie on in relation to also the final scene with those Rihanna core, that Rihanna humming, man. Oh, what a great song. What do we think of
And
young T'Challa?
if I just mention just a little bit, Rihanna's song, it was all right. It wasn't that. It was very somber to me, which fit with the movie.
Felt appropriate.
Yes. When it comes to young T'Challa, I was glad they mentioned that the Queen had seen him, that Chadwick knew him, and Nakia was raising him, because I was like, why is Nakia not in the funeral? Oh, this is why. So I'm glad
Why
they
wouldn't
tied
Shuri
that.
know? That was a little too. It was like, Ray, you're a Palpatine.
That's true.
Leia knew it too. It's like, then what? How? That was the
Yeah,
one.
okay.
I
I
get it.
I
You
did not
can't
think
tell
about
us.
that.
Yeah, but Shuri
I
should have
didn't think about that.
known.
Yeah, but now she can, I don't know, like she can be his auntie now. There's no one else but her in
I
connection. Yeah, there's no grandmother, no father, but there's an
oh
auntie,
shush.
so there's that. And I would say he's very brave to know that there's so much death. His father's gone, his grandmother's gone, but he's like, I'm here, it's fine, we can be
Well,
together
he's a
forever.
child.
He's
Baby.
a mature child.
And he never knew his grandfather.
Yes.
He was born after. And I know, so he must have been born. Well, okay, so Black Panther, the first one takes place right after Civil War. So he was probably born before Infinity War, obviously, and then he lived through the blip with Nakia, which Nakia, I believe they confirm, did not blip because she lived. They talk about after Thanos that she left Wakanda.
Is that 4 years then? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just leave this too because I just found this and I thought it was clever about, if I can say, the costume.
That's a heart.
It's the Iron Heart.
Oh.
I like that.
Her costume is a heart.
Her costume
Is that
is
your
a
phone
heart.
or is that like a card?
This is a phone. I did
This
not.
is a phone.
It's like, I'm not.
It's a sticker.
It's a sticker.
Yeah.
So Constance, I think we've come to this end of this Wakandan journey, probably as long as the movie itself. Closing thoughts, your thoughts on the mid-credit scene. Where do you leave at right now, having only seen it once with Wakanda Forever?
I need to see it again. Couple thoughts.
Mm.
Riri Williams, you know how they talk about her a lot before we actually meet her? So you had time to really think, okay, oh, she's coming. I honestly was sitting there going, oh no, it's America Chavez again. And I hated that whole thing. So I thought this was gonna be so bad, just like that. I was like, see, same plot point, they're doing it again. But then she came on screen and started talking. And I was like, oh yes, so good. I liked her, but I don't know if she did need to be in this movie because a lot of my issues are plot driven, and I'm like, did she have to be the thing that brings out Namor? Did she have to be the thing that they fight over? Like the reason they actually went to war is like, I want to kill her. No, we got to save her. Like I don't know if I like that being the story beat that they went with. But I like the actress and I want more of her. I just don't know if she had to be in this film. So that I wanted to say that real quick on her.
It goes back to the Martin Freeman, Julia Louis-Dreyfus of them
Yes.
feeling like it need those elements when it doesn't. But at the same time, I like the fact that Letitia, right, and I feel like it says something that we're talking about the actors' names and not the characters' names a lot with these like Angela Bassett, Letitia, right? But Shuri is able to be T'Challa to somebody else's Shuri, and like
Right.
to see that growth and journey. I
Right.
like her.
Oh yeah. I would cut Martin Freeman and all that first, and then if the movie still felt too long, I'm like, okay, can we massage this script a little bit so that it doesn't feel like Doctor Strange 2 all over again? Because I felt a lot of the same beats and it bothered me. Now that mid-credit scene, in the context of the movie, I really liked it. I was like, yes, this is, if you think about the very beginning and this very nice bookends, and it's important to close as much closure as you can get with this theme. That's good. I don't know if I like it overall though. Like if you take that part away and just look at it for its own sake, I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Thor has a kid, and Wanda has kid. Like suddenly all these kids are springing up. It doesn't feel special because because we have so many in a row. I think if we had more room between projects, it wouldn't feel like I just saw this.
And don't
Thor
forget
ends
Hulk.
with Thor getting a kid. Like it felt too samey-wamey, and I don't think that's the movie's fault. I think if we had this big chunk of time, but I know they can't afford
They
that.
don't like doing that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like, okay, Endgame, Tony got a kid.
Right.
Far From Home, nobody got a kid, right? Nobody got a kid in Far From Home.
Right.
WandaVision, we got a kid.
Two kids.
Two kids. Falcon the Winter Soldier, we got a kid in Eli Bradley. Loki, we got Kid Loki.
Right.
Black Widow, we got Yelena. We got their younger versions. It seems that we got a kid in every single Marvel movie.
And Hulk as well.
Hulk
Remember
is the biggest
Hulk?
defense. She-Hulk is just like, you did not need to put a kid in this show.
I know.
Yes.
It's silly.
It's just so close together. Like again, not that the future matters, but way in the future when you can control like, oh, I'm going to visit this now, and you can control the speed. Maybe you won't feel it the same way, but
wait, maybe
Yes.
maybe there's going to be a massive time jump, and all these characters will age up. I'm assuming because
I hope.
I think they're trying to be like, all right, Ruffalo, all right, Hemsworth, you're good, because we're not going to kill every single character, but I think we're going to get to the point where these.
But it's about passing the baton.
They should.
right.
Because the fact that we're getting every single character has a kid or a successor, I think means that at the end of Secret Wars, I don't think we'll see many of the original characters left. I think
Which I like to think was the overall goal of, we did kill Steve and Tony, but we're not going to kill everyone. And I'm like, okay, but I also didn't think we were going to get a person to person ratio. Like, here's our young Hawkeye and here's our young Hulk. Like, why not just have new characters? I don't need
Bless you.
the next Ant-Man. It's like, it could be a completely different character. I don't need like, oh, but we always have to have a Black Widow. We always have to have a Hulk. I don't need that. I'd rather just fall in love with a new group. It doesn't have to be. So it's not the movie's fault. It's because of where it fell in line. I think if we got this movie first, I wouldn't even think of that. But because we just had all these other movies really close together, I'm like, oh, again.
I can't wait for baby Bucky with his little baby arm.
Yes. So ignore all that and look at just the movie for its own sake. It's perfect. But because the movie's all like, now remember, we're connected, and I'm thinking about the connective tissue, I'm like, oh, another one. Okay, sure.
It's
Have
funny.
a baby Deadpool.
Oh Lord, we're definitely getting that. We technically got half of that in Deadpool 2 when he was the bottom.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Block that out, did you? It's funny because you talk about the future of the MCU. I feel like this is the first movie since Endgame where if they stopped making Marvel movies, it'd be fine. This movie,
Absolutely. Yes.
Like I don't need Black Panther 3.
30 is a great number.
30, it's an even number. It ends in a 0.
Yes.
And ending awesome. On the beach, I think that was quite nice as well.
Yeah. So
and the burning of the
robes. Oh,
I think that shows the finality of grieving and you start anew. I think that was beautiful.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of said our thoughts. If there's anything left, I think we all agree this is a beautiful movie that had to get around a lot, and I think we agree that it successfully maneuvers itself to. our minor quibbles, I think we say, you know, they did the best they could. And
Yeah.
even so, like, I think we all agree this is probably one of the best, if not the best, Phase 4 has given us, and just Marvel, period, if not the genre. I think mad respect for Coogler and everybody. It's a superhero movie with weight. So yeah, I really Wakanda Forever, indeed. Any other closing thoughts from our council?
Just that I don't envy the team. I applaud them for having the strength to do it, and it is the best that they could do. And if this is like, if we want to start judging Marvel films like the Olympics, do I think they stick the landing with this? No, I would take off like a 16th of a point here, and you know, 16th of a point there. So it doesn't fully stick the landing, but I don't think I could do better. I do think it was just so challenging, and it's not like, oh, it's such a failure. It really does do beautiful things, and so I want to applaud that. So Ryan Coogler, not that you care about our little channel here, but if you were to listen in, we are not bashing you. We really do appreciate what you had to make, because it is beautiful.
If this is bashing, I want this bashing. This is the nicest report card I think we could have given him.
So we also give scores as well out of 10, if that's allowed.
It sure is. That can be a nice way to close. All right, Natalia, what's your score?
My score, 8. 8 out of 10.
Sahel?
I have the right to change it after my second viewing,
Yes.
but 7.5.
Constance?
7.
All right.
I feel like we're descending.
Well, I'm giving it a 9.6. So
Never mind.
So we are an average rating of an 8. So that wraps us up for today's episode. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the movie and our conversation. Make sure to share this with as many people as you want. And we shall see you next time. Wakanda Forever, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.